games and claimed the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference playoffs a year ago, but they want the entire league to fear the deer in 2018-19.
We haven't been in the second round, period. We got to do better, and we got to play better, and hopefully we can accomplish it. If we don't accomplish it, got to go back, work hard again and again and again.
Giannis is locked in, and the Bucks suffered a lesson-learning defeat to the Celtics in the first round of last year's playoffs. We're here to break it all the way down. The prospects for the upcoming season, players and rotations, Rick Kamla, Greg Anthony, Hall of Famer Kevin McHale. And, Coach, I start with you first. What specific lessons did the Bucks learn in losing to the Celtics a year ago?
Some positives. They learned Antetokounmpo can really play well for 7 games. They found out Middleton can get on fire for 7 games, and they found out they need more playmaking against a top-tier defensive team like Boston Celtics to try to beat them in a 7-game series. Just not enough guys off the bounce being able to get to the rack and make plays for each other.
Yeah, I think they also, listen, they got to improve not just offensively but defensively.
Yes.
They still weren't as good on either side of the ball. And this is where I think from an offensive standpoint, Mike Budenholzer is going to make a huge difference, because as great as Giannis has been, as terrific a talent as he is, I still want to see him play better without the basketball offensively. You know, he's always got to be accounted for. Easier to load to him on a team that doesn't shoot it as well from the perimeter, where there's not a lot of ball movement in the half court. Now, I think that's one of the strengths of Mike Budenholzer. I think you're going to see this team become a little more dynamic offensively. I think their passing and spacing will improve, because that's what he's noted for and had a lot of success with the Hawks.
Yeah, you know, he's always going to draw the other team's best defender. So when he's setting screens and popping, that can shake things up for him. He always doesn't have to have the ball in his hands. I'd like to see them get more ball handlers that can come off the screen and make plays. But that throwback to Giannis and having him come downhill on you, he's almost impossible to guard with space out there. He's so long, and he's got that Euro step, and he's so clever. But I agree. I think off the ball, he's just got to become a better player popping, and then his shots just got to improve some. He's getting better at it, but just still got to get more improvement.
So Giannis Antetokounmpo finished 6th in MVP voting a year ago, posting career highs in points, rebounds, field goal percentage. So is it MVP or bust for Giannis this year? James Harden may be snickering as he watches the show, but are you thinking an MVP year for Giannis here?
I think it's dependent upon how well the team does. The reason James Harden won the MVP last year was that his team was the 1 seed in the Western Conference. I think if you see this Buck team move up into the top 4 and get home court in that first round, and his numbers are where they were this past season, I think he's going to get credit for that, and I think you're going to see him elevate in the MVP talk. But if it's just a statistics-laden output from him and the team is not showing growth, then I don't know that you're going to see him improve upon that standing in terms of the MVP voting.
Yeah, no, MVP or bust, no, not for Antetokounmpo. It's improve your team a lot, become better, get home court advantage, advance to the second and third round. But, you know, Anthony Davis may have something to say about that MVP. Kevin Durant, James Harden. There's some players out there to say MVP or bust, that's too much. I just think, I do believe he's going to get better. He's got to drive that team to more wins.
All right, so we'll see how that works out. And you mentioned Coach Mike Budenholzer, and when he was in Atlanta, winning a Coach of the Year award, by the way, his system was all about pace, space, ball movement, 5 guys on the floor who could shoot. Is that system a good fit for Giannis and the Bucks?
Yeah, I think it will be eventually. I think that, yeah, you're right. You know, Budenholzer's system was the best teams he had in Atlanta. The ball really popped, but he didn't have one really dominant player. I think with Antetokounmpo and having a dominant player, you've got to figure out how to blend him in with everything, and especially your system that you've liked ball movement in. So it's going to be a little bit of probably a learning time for both Coach and Antetokounmpo to fit into a system. And but I do like it. I think he's creative. I think he'll put the Greek Freak in a lot of interesting positions to succeed. And that kid can play. He's a tremendous player.
And I think he also will help Eric Bledsoe.
Yeah.
And listen, anytime you're a great player, the one thing all teams want to do is create space for their best player. And so that's why I think that Budenholzer is a really good hire for them and a good fit in that regard. But listen, overall, I still look at their roster, and as great as he is and as good as Middleton has progressed, they still have to elevate, either through improving the guys that are there or potentially through acquisition. So I still don't look at their roster yet as being in that upper tier in the Eastern Conference. But Giannis could prove us wrong if he continues to elevate his play.
Right, I agree. Another shooter or two, another playmaker, in the 1 through 4, because Giannis is kind of a unique 4 guy. Their center spots really got a big hole in it. Honestly, to be truthful, I think Hinson just has a hard time scoring the ball. Brook Lopez really has a tough time defensively wise in today's game and stuff. So they're going to have to shore that up, I think, to take that next jump.
Let's talk Chris Middleton. He comes off an amazing season, best season of his career, average career highs in points, 20.1, rebounds at 5.2. How do he and Giannis complement each other?
I think very well, because he's not a ball-dominant player, and so it helps when you're a best player, because most best players are ball-dominant. And so he's a complementary piece in that he can catch it, score it off the catch. He can create when needed. He can play in space. I think he's terrific. I got to say, I think he had a better year than I thought he would have a season ago. And Kevin was talking about how good was he in the postseason last year. I mean, he was incredible. And so I do think he is proving to be capable of being a part of that 1-2 punch with Giannis. So they're fine in those areas. But to Kevin's point, they need elevation across the board in those other areas. They're fine with those two.
I think he really benefited from, they put the top defender on Antetokounmpo all the time. And now you're another wing guy. He had some defenders on him. He was much bigger than, like in that Celtics series, he just took those guys in the mid-post. I didn't know he had that kind of mid-post game. Little turnaround fadeaway, little face-up, little shot. And he was so effective there. And all of a sudden you start saying, boy, I can see that. How many teams have really legit defenders at the wing spots all the way through? There's usually a couple guys that aren't very good defenders there, and he takes advantage of those guys. So Middleton's playing with the right guy in Antetokounmpo, because Antetokounmpo draws so much attention. He's got ability, and his little post-up, little mid-range game there really impressed me.
I want to go back to the center conversation that we've touched on a little bit here.
I don't want to go back.
In terms of, but Brook Lopez is who he is in the NBA. He's a terrific shooter for a 7-footer. He's limited defensively, but like we talked about, Coach Bud wants all 5 guys on the court to be able to shoot, and Lopez can do that.
No, he can shoot it. And listen, in essence, he signed a deal for a minimum contract at this stage of his career. So it's a good value to have a guy who's been an all-star, who's been the best player on a playoff team on that roster. And it is an upgrade in some respects. But overall, that position, John Henson has been solid. But in order for you to compete and contend in the Eastern Conference, you've got to elevate those positions. If you look at the top teams, you look at what Toronto's got going on their front line, you look at Boston, that's who they're competing against. You look at what Washington has done in this past offseason. So in order for them to get into that upper tier, they're going to have to improve across the board in that center position, not just offensively, but at times defensively, because you got to be able to guard in space. And that's going to be an issue for Lopez. Even Henson struggles with that against dynamic perimeter players when he gets switched out on them. So they're going to have some questions and some concerns that they're going to have to address here in the preseason.
Thon Maker might be a guy that they can plug in there. He can make some shots. He can spread the floor like Budenholzer likes as a coach. But he also, he can block shots, and he can get down in the stance and move his feet. So I think that he might be a guy that, as the season progresses, starts taking some of that center spot. And, if that happens and he matures and gets better, that's going to just elevate their team overall, because I agree with you. I think in today's game, 5 guys that can shoot and 5 guys that can switch seem to be what everybody's doing.
Thon Maker, a lottery pick a couple of years ago. We'll see how he figures into the plans. And coming up, we're going to take a look at more of Giannis's supporting cast, including contract year point guard Eric Bledsoe. So don't go anywhere. This is the Bucks preview show on NBA TV. We're back with a social moment from over the summer, and it's Giannis Antetokounmpo training by boxing. Mac, did you ever in your Hall of Fame career train by throwing punches?
I didn't. Well, you're throwing punches, but not boxing. Training boxing. My neighbor used to put on boxing gloves and beat the hell out of me. It hurts when you get hit with a boxing glove. He put his gloves on and say it's not going to hurt. It does hurt.
I tell you, I've heard of guys in boxing with reach.
But
that's a whole nother level right there. He could hit you from across the ring.
Yeah, across the block.
Yeah.
So, but Canelo and Triple G, not really fearing the deer here, right? Hey, here are the starters with more on the Greek Freak.
Skeets and Lee here from the starters with your next point about the Milwaukee Bucks. True or false? Giannis, the Greek Freak, is the best player in the East.
True. Yeah, with LeBron.
Wow, that didn't take you long.
No, with LeBron moving to the Los Angeles Lakers, of course, that opens it up. But if you look at the Eastern Conference, the other players who are in contention, I think it's Joel Embiid, maybe Kawhi Leonard. But Kawhi missed all of last season, so we don't know what we're going to see. But Giannis last year was in the MVP conversation pretty much all season long. He was just an incredible player at both ends of the floor. And this year he has to take another step, which I think he's ready to do. So I think he is the best player in the Eastern Conference. Certainly if we were having a draft, I would pick him as my first pick.
Yeah, look at the numbers there last season. 27 and 10,
yeah.
And he's improved every year. I mean, we could be looking at a guy averaging something like 30 and maybe 11 or 10. And you got Coach Mike Budenholzer coming in here. They brought in some shooters in Ilyasova and Brook Lopez, maybe to get more three-point shots. They didn't shoot a lot of threes last year, so maybe it opens up the floor a little bit and gives Giannis even more room to operate and take one step and then dunk on someone.
Well, if you look at how they lost to the Celtics in the playoffs last year as well, Giannis often got caught inside when the team would collapse on him, and he didn't have those guys to pass it to shoot, knock down those three-pointers. Now, Giannis has to learn to get rid of the ball earlier, but he also has to be able to throw it to guys who he knows can hit down those threes consistently. So it's going to be an interesting year for the Milwaukee Bucks. We expect them to finish, I think, no worse than top 4 in the Eastern
I was going to say, would
Conference.
it be a disappointing season if the Bucks don't flirt with 50 wins and at least win a playoff series?
Absolutely,
It's been a long time. You think it would be bad?
I think the minimum goal for them is finishing 4th in the Eastern Conference. Absolutely minimum. And really, they should be probably looking at 1 or 2.
All right, let's hear from you guys. Is Giannis the best player in the Eastern Conference now, like Lee said, that LeBron has headed to the Lakers? Let us know on Twitter at #TheStarters.
Great stuff, guys. And still to come on the Bucks preview show, we asked the question, can the Bucks go deep in the playoffs in their new building?